Hello everybody, back to a video. I know, rare sight nowadays since I'm mainly just streaming, but also a different kind of video. I normally do Fire Emblem, but in my off time I like to play this game called Crusader Kings 3, which is if you don't know, it's a grand strategy game, which is kind of like a simulator for medieval politics and geopolitics. And I've had a run here, which I've run from the year 867 to 1444, which is where I'll stop it and convert it to the next game in line, Europa Universalis 4, to do a Megacampaign. And I'm gonna do this all the way until World War II, essentially, so 500 more years to go. And this is kind of like an after-action report, where I'll just be talking about what happened in my run, how the world looks, and if you're into this sort of thing, you're welcome to listen. And once I am ready with converting my save file to Europa Universalis 4, I will make a follow-up video about that. And if you want the mod list, I will also put it in the description. In any case, let me just start talking about the world. So, let me just start at the top, right? We have Iceland here. Iceland is Irish, pretty much. This is like an offshoot state of Ireland, and this is Ireland itself. And then we go to the British Isles, where, as you can see, something's going on here immediately. Even if you haven't played the game before, you notice something here. But let's start off small. So we have the Irish, which have kind of unified, and are insular Christian, which is kind of like Irish Christianity, if you take a look here. They're kind of just doing their own thing. They do own, or... yeah, kind of, they used to own this piece over here, but I guess they got independent. Same with this part of Iceland as well. Then we have Cumbria, which was one of the dynasties, Up-Aetherin, which is what the dynasty was called. And yes, that's the normal coat of arms. I did not edit that. And their Asatru, they were very interesting because the Asatrus, which is the Norse, like Germanic, Scandinavian pagans, essentially, they used to be unreformed, and Scandinavia was pretty much fully Christianized, or Christianized, was that how it's called? And I was like, you know what, I want to make for an interesting conversion to EU4, so I played as a character here, and I managed to reform the faith, and Cumbria was once a big kingdom. Now it's pretty much just a little rump state over here, underdeveloped. It's not even culturally Cumbrian for the most part. I don't think a single part of it is culturally Cumbrian, because one of my vassals here conquered part of Cumbria. But they're like the last remainers of the Norse faith on the British Isles, alongside the Gaels here in the Insegal. More Gaels here, but insular Christians. You also have the Orkney Islands, which are Hjaltland culture. So this is like the remainders of the Norse. They're just on the Orkneys, really. They didn't really manage to penetrate into the British Isles. But as you can see here, this is not Britain, this is not England, this is Cymru, or however you pronounce that. They're Cambrians. Cambrians are Welsh people. I tended to swap characters here and there while I played the game, and the Welsh was one of the characters, or one of the cultures, let me say, that I played, and I conquered all of England, pretty much. I culturally converted most of England. This is like actual England for the most part, as well as some like exiles, or like Northumbrian exiles, pretty much in the north. And there's also like a new Welsh culture that also sprang up here, and a little bit of Cornish left there. There's the Cumbrians here that are in my land, but the British Isles are pretty much the Welsh Isles. The Britannics have, for the most part, reconquered the Isles. And the English, while they do exist, and an English kingdom does also exist, it only exists, like, it only started existing very, very recently. And it's also a Welsh kingdom, or ruled by the Welsh, rather. By another dynasty than mine, but still a Welsh one. And the Welsh also have reformed the Brythonic faith, which is like the... What's yeah, so it's a primitive form of the Celtic faith practiced in England. Practiced? Oh, okay. In England and Wales. So I managed to reform this faith as well and convert the Isles to it, which did mean that the Isles were a common target of crusades. Now, and as you can see, that's what this thing is right here. There's a great crusade for the Kingdom of England here. I think, like, and this is gonna be, you're not gonna be fighting this one in Crusader Kings 3, you're gonna be fighting this one in EU4, so that'll be interesting. And I think in Crusader Kings 3 at least, you definitely have the advantage, even though you have less numbers, and you can definitely beat back the enemy. I've done it before. But in EU4, I'm not quite sure, we'll see. But it'll make for an interesting start into the conversion. And yeah, so you'll be, if you play as the Welsh, you'll be able to fight off the Christians. However, if we then go to Europe, you can see, wow, this looks like, this is all awful. This is awful. France is like pierced into Denmark all the way through Germany. Half of southern France is ruled by some yellow kingdom, as well as northern Italy and central Spain. They're the Occitans, which is like these people right here. You have Provence free. You have Germany, which is divided in two and ruled by the Dutch. You have all loads of other things here. Let's go over them culturally. Let's start off in Spain, maybe. So, at the start of the game, the Arabs have pretty much conquered most of Spain. It's only up to like the north part here in Asturias that is still Christian. But the Christians have managed to somewhat do the Reconquista, where they've reconquered the territories, as you can see. The Catholics own most of the land. Ashari is the Sunni Muslim faith. They're still present here in like Morocco and southern Spain, but they're on the losing side, I'm pretty sure. I have not played in this region though, so I'm not quite sure. And this is like the big kingdom here that's still holding on. The other kingdoms here, the smaller ones, are pretty much all Christian kingdoms, I think. Yeah, they're all Christian kingdoms. And if you look at the place culturally, first thing I found very, very weird is the Catalans have expanded into southern France. So Catalonia is gigantic here. Otherwise, this looks like is a little bit hard to read, but the Galicians are actually quite big, and they would pretty much, you could say, replace the Portuguese in this timeline. The Castilians are pretty much just up north. Then you have like the Olmedos, which are like also Mozarab, which is Spanish. Wait, are they Spanish? No, Mozarabs are, oh, they're mixed Spanish Arabs essentially, and they're like an offshoot of that. You have the Basque people who are barely existing over here. Navarro Aragonese, which are again like part Arab, part Iberian. Andalusians, which are Iberians who speak Arabic, pretty much, and the Alsarks, which is an offshoot of that. And the Mallorcans, obviously. Or Mallorca, or whatever you wanna call it. I don't know. Pronunciation hard. But yeah, so this could be an interesting region to play as is either faction. And do I want to go? No, let's stay in Europe for now. Then we have France, and France is ruled by an Orléans culture, which is pretty much just another offshoot of French. As you can see in the culture map mode right here, the Occitans are actually one of the big uniting, like, they really pulled their weight this run. They've been here and there and here and there and everywhere. The French kind of still exist as like a unified French culture, but most of it has diverged into their own little local cultures, like the Mayans, or well, again, pronunciation, please don't fucking hang me for that. The Orléans, the Normans, and the Bretons even have expanded a little bit culturally. And there's also the Lesinhans, but those are Occitans, and this one, which is Catalan. And there's the Arpitons and the Bourbonnais And so France as one thing does exist and is ruled by the French, and it's big, but it's culturally very, very divided. And then there's also the Provençons, the, the people from Provence, right here. So again, could be interesting. There aren't many countries to play here. I think France is also in a... Oh no, those are just the enemies I'm at war with. But it's very culturally divided, and I think that will cause issues down the line for them in EU4. But how the converter works is it's gonna take the biggest vassals and kind of turn them into... Oh, let me turn down the music. I think the music's gonna be loud. There we go. So it's gonna turn the strongest vassals into playable nations in EU4. So you have plenty of little playables right here to maybe like unify the culture or whatever you want, or maybe like take the Bretons and have them conquer stuff. I don't know, lots of possibilities. Then we have Provence here, and Provence is very interesting because they've managed to stay independent, but not only are they independent, they're apostolic Christians, which is like a Armenian church over here, as you can see. And they're also culturally, or the leader rather, is Lazi, which is a Caucasian culture over here in modern-day Turkey. I don't know how they got here, I don't know how they got in power, but they're here, and it appears they're gonna stay here. So, respect to them. Sardinia is pretty much unified for the most part. Corsica is, I mean, it's pretty much Orthodox Sardinia versus Catholic Sardinia, but the Orthodox look like they're winning. This is also still part of the Occitan realm, and I haven't really looked at Italy much either. So yeah, you also have a little, like, a bunch of little cultures here. The Italians are still like, I guess this would be the Central Italians, you could say. But the very, very interesting thing here is, okay, so there's the Gricos. Those are pretty much Byzantine Greek Italians. Okay, interesting. Greciano, those are also Byzantine Greek Italians, but they're culturally different for some reason. But the very, very interesting thing, the Hungarians live in Sicily. So in this timeline, Hungary is in Sicily. I mean, Hungary is not an independent nation here, right? There's Sicilians that are ruling this place, but somehow, and I genuinely don't have an idea how, the Hungarians somehow got here into Sicily, and they don't exist anywhere else on the map, so they've just managed to make this their home. So Hungary is Sicilian, or Sicily is Hungarian, rather. That'll make for a very, very interesting country in EU4 to play. If you want, like, Greater Hungary, aka this piece of land. What else? I think religions-wise, yeah, the Hungarians are also Ibadi Muslims, so that just sounds weird. There's a little bit of Orthodoxy still left in Italy, but for the most part it's Catholic. Then we get to... let's start off with the big country. The big elephant in the room here, Slovakia. This was the first country I played, and as a Rastislavit dynasty, and I managed to make him quite big. I managed to reconvert to the Slavic faith and re-establish it. For the most part, it's only present in Slovakia and the surrounding lands, so it's more of a local religion than anything else, but it has withheld countless crusades and stayed relevant as a regional power, you could say. Now, if we look at them culturally, it's the Netravan culture for the main part. This is also a very culturally divided place. There's the Visegrad culture as well, but those are pretty much just, you could say, Slovakians that live on the plains, because the Hungarians never made their move to the plains. And I'll explain that once we get to Eastern Europe. But, very, very interesting place. They're going to be an interesting country as well. We have the Bohemians here, but... or the country of Bohemia, but as you can see, the Czechs kind of don't really exist. They pretty much just got sandwiched by the surrounding culture, so modern-day Czechia is just Bavarian, Sorbian, Austrian, and Slovakian for the most part. The Czechs kind of just managed to be exiled here, you could say. I have a mod, by the way, if you're wondering how these weird borders came to play. I first of all have a bunch of mods that add culture, and second of all have a mod that or that overhauls how culture works a little bit and adds migration to the game. So cultures or provinces like change culture every now and again. You have like minor cultural communities, major cultural communities, and if you then get another like culture tick, you could say, then you actually convert the province. So you could also maybe like play as the Czechs here and try to reestablish or reconquer Czechia. That could be an interesting run. What else? You have the Croatians here, which are East Slavic. So they're similar to the Russians, you could say, or to the Ukrainians maybe. And they've actually been very, very Christian until a couple of 100 years ago. And were one of the biggest, or Catholics even, were one of the biggest factions of resistance, you can say, to the Slovakians here. So that could be interesting as well. The Avars still exist here, but they're very small. Very, very small. What else? You have the Tiverians here, which is another, like, Ukrainian-related culture, you could say. I'm not quite 100% sure if that's correct, but they're East Slavic. They have the same heritage, at least. And they actually control northern, or what would be today northern Romania. The Romanians, which are the Vlachs here, pretty much are just stationary in Wallonia. Or not Wallonia, Wallachia. But some of them have also been exiled to modern-day Serbia and, like, what is this? Thrace? Thracia? Yeah, haha, Fire Emblem Thracia. But yeah, so that could be interesting. There's also a little bit, like, of other Slavs, like Pannonian Slavs, that are here, like the Blatnoslavs, the Abotrites, and the Sonats are also, like, Vlach culture. The big thing here as well is the Caranthians. These are pretty much Slovenes, from what I understand. So they've somehow managed to expand pretty far into everything here. One thing I also found very, very interesting is Serbians don't really exist, and neither does Serbia, really. You have a little bit of Serbian here in Montenegro, but pretty much everything else has been, like, conquered. Either by, be it the Romanians, the Croatians, which control most of modern-day Serbia somehow, so I guess they're the new Serbians. By the Dalmatians, which are, like, Latin heritage, so pretty much part Roman, I think. I don't know. Neretians. I think these guys are also related to the Serbs. Same with the Croatians, I guess. And the Abotrites. And I think the Savians as well. Yeah. Then you have the Albanians over here. And they are, well, Illyrian heritage, of course. But in some areas they've grown, in others they've been reduced. Don't even get me started on Greece. The Bulgarians are also quite big. As you can see, the Bulgarian Empire here, Moldavia over there. But Albania is technically independent, so that's interesting. Yeah, this is pretty much Serbia, but they're ruled by Okay, so Magyars are the predecessors to the Hungarians, and they've stayed around. Because the Magyars have never made their trek to the Pannonian Basin. And they rule Serbia, or what is essentially Serbia. And there's Slavonia here, which is ruled by the Germans, by the Saxons. There's Chorvako, which is ruled by the Sorbians. The Sorbians, as I will show you, are really, really big, actually. Really influential in this world. And what else? Yeah, those are the Bulgarians as well. They're also pretty big. Same with the Bruja here. Oh, Severians, those are Russians, for example. Like, as you can see, this is a couple small states here and there. They're still Slavyanskan, Slovakia, Slavyanskan, Polabia, Slavyanskan, and I think, like, maybe a couple... No. These states are... And that's pretty much all the Slavyanskans, right? So, they could easily be rooted out if Slovakia falls. Next up, let's jump into Germany. So Germany is very, very divided, as you can see. There's the French here, there's the Lotharingians there, which are ruled by the Karlings. I did not even realize that. They have not been around for a while. Yeah, the French are not even ruled by the Karlings anymore. The Dutch have taken control over the Kingdom of Germany, but funnily enough, Germany was ruled by the Sorbians for the longest time. So, which are a Slavic group of people here. And if you look at the culture map mode, again, it's horrible. The Frisians are a little bit bigger, the Flemish are a little bit bigger. The Nederfrankers is pretty much Dutch. They've certainly expanded. Then the Franconians, these are like the German cultures. Franconians, Swabians, Frankofurda, Württemberg, Austrian, Bavarian, Lorrainian, Saxon, but as you can see, Germany it goes further eastward a little bit into the Pannonian Basin, and I think a little bit further west as well in some areas. But they never really managed to Germanize what is modern-day Eastern Germany. They've kind of held their place, or kinda have gotten integrated, but not culturally. As you can see, there's been attempts, like the Pomeranians, which is a mix of Germans and the Pomeranians here. They kind of exist here, but most of the Pomeranians are still Slavic. There's the Markish, which are Veletabians. They also kind of still exist. Milcenians are also the Sorbs, but the Sorbians also mostly still exist. So there's small attempts, small pockets here and there, but for the most part, Eastern Germany is still Slavic, which is interesting. You have the Danes there in Jutland, but funnily enough, like Kiel and the German cities here, or what is modern-day Germany, they're Danish because the Jutes are Danish people. But this piece of land between them is actually German Saxons. So, yeah. Weird. And if we take a look at the map mode, or the realm map mode, yeah. Pomerania also only recently got conquered by the Christians. Very beautiful man right here. What else? Switzerland doesn't exist. I'm sorry, Norian. They just never appeared. I don't think they really appear unless you play as them. Then let's go to Scandinavia, because Scandinavia is also quite interesting. This is Sweden, Sverige. And they used to only control, like, pretty much only Sweden and southern Norway, like 100 years ago. But they've really been expansionist and expanded upon all of Norway, as well as the Sami people who used to be up here. They're ruled by the Asatrus, which is the Norse Germanic faith, and they're culturally, I mean, they're mostly Scandinavian. So here it's not that big. There's like a little bit of, the Svea are pretty much the north or central Swedes, I think. The Geats are like the south Swedes. And then you have Danes, which are, I mean, they exist. They exist a little bit here, a little bit there, but Danes are not really that big anymore, so I guess this place would be called Jutland and not Denmark. But whatever. The Norse are pretty much the Norwegians, and while Norway as a country doesn't exist, the Norwegians have expanded significantly compared to our timeline for the most part. You also have the Jamtaland Leatna, which is a mix of the Sami, or a divergence of the Sami people, and the Samis here have actually had a really, really great game as well, up until the Swedes conquered them recently. As you can see, their culture is spread far and wide. The Jamtalands, which this is modern day like Norway and Sweden, they're actually Sami as well. And then you have the Satakunda here, and these are not Finnish people. These are also Samis. As you can see, Finnish people actually don't exist. There is the Karelians, which are arguably the replacement of the Finnish people, especially since they have conquered or reconquered Finland recently culturally. And so, yeah, Finland doesn't exist, Karelia exists. Which is kind of funny, because in our timeline, Karelia doesn't really exist anymore, but Finland does. What else? There's this culture as well, which is a divergence of the Sami. Let's check this map mode as well. As you can see, Finland has always been like a Catholic stronghold in Scandinavia. Most of Scandinavia is actually Norse faith. Another interesting country, by the way, could be this one. They used to have the coastline right here. This is Hålogaland. They're Norwegian Catholics. They're the last remainder of Christianity or Scandinavian Christianity, you could say, in Scandinavia. So they could also be a very, very interesting country to play in EU4. What else? Oh yeah, Denmark technically exists, but again, they're Jute, led by the Jute, so it would be Jutemark. I don't know. Anyways, but the other big thing you may notice here is the Baltic Empire. I played as them as well a little bit as the Lanema dynasty. Holy shit, have they many children. And they're Livonians. So as you can see, the Livonians actually got pretty huge. And they even managed to kind of culturally convert what would be modern-day Novgorod and modern-day Russia here. So the Baltics have had a really great game as well. The Estonians are also here, the Curonians are here. And so this is pretty much like core Baltic territory now. And they have managed to reform the Vitalist faith. I was playing as them around the time that the Mongol Empire was supposed to come around. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get, like, destroyed by the Mongols, I gotta get stronger. And then the Mongols came. They came up to, like, not even the Urals. And then they just kind of died. And then the Vitalists just started to expand further, so even though this is only the Baltic Empire, you also have the Uilina, which is like Novgorod, essentially, in Livonian, I think. They're also Vitalist. You have this kingdom here, which is also Vitalist. You have Chernigov. Actually, they're Orthodox. But you have a couple of kingdoms here, which are also Vitalist. And I think a couple... Yeah, like Poznan is also Vitalist, for example. So they've had a great game as well. And again, relatively culturally divided, but the cultures inside of it tend to be Baltic or Balto-Finnic. The Russians pretty much don't really have a state, because this is what would be the Russian state, but they're Livonian, so they're ruled by the Baltics. And I guess this could be considered... No, they're also Volga-Finnic. So I guess this would be the closest thing there is to a Russian state, because they're Severians, which is also a Russian culture, and they're Orthodox. But yeah, this is also quite interesting. You could do a lot here. I think there's also... where was it? Are they still here? There was like a... Yeah, there's also like the Vepsians here, which are Orthodox. So if you want to do like a very hard playthrough where you bring back Orthodoxy to this region, you could play as this country right here. Another thing that is also quite interesting, although it doesn't really show anymore, this piece, which is modern-day Murmansk, and was ruled by the Sami for a long while, for whatever reason, and I still don't know how or why, converted to, I think it was Orisen, which is like an African folk religion, an organized religion, because they managed to organize somehow. But they somehow managed to have the ruler over here, a Sami dude in Murmansk, convert to a Nigerian folk religion, and he converted this piece to a Nigerian folk religion, and just was like that for like 300 years. And I was thinking like maybe he got seduced by some Yoruba woman or like a Nigerian woman, but no, I looked through his entire court and I could not find a single person from Yoruba, so I have no idea how it happened, but it was quite insane, but it's over now. They're no longer there, but you know what, this is like a prime candidate for maybe I'll add like a decision where you can reconvert to the faith. Like, I don't know, find old lost books. Could make for a very interesting playthrough. What else? What else? Oh yeah, here. So, they got conquered actually. There's this kingdom of Yedisan right here, and this is where the Hungarians start, or the Magyars, or Mögirs, is how the game calls them here. These are pretty much the predecessors to the Hungarians, but they never, like in history, they moved from here over to modern-day Hungary and then kind of just stayed there. But they never made that trek into the Pannonian Basin in this timeline. So I guess this is the closest thing you have to Hungary, which is modern day Ukraine. Ukraine was a very, very interesting region in my playthrough in general, because they had every single faith you can think of in there somehow. They still have a bunch of, like, this was the most religiously divided region on the entire Earth. It was quite interesting. And if you look at it now, you still have very much the division here. Like, for example, this kingdom right here, or this duchy, is ruled by Khazarite Jews. So they start out around here like the Khazars, and they did rule for a long time, but eventually they did fall apart. And the Levedians are kind of like the, I guess you could say the remainders of the Khazars. The Khazars still technically exist here and there, but this is pretty much what actual Khazars are here now. So that is quite interesting. Then you also have a little bit of this faith, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce that because YouTube will probably ban me for it, but haha, funny name. This is a Caucasian brand of Christianity that somehow took over pretty much all of modern day Ukraine in my playthrough, but eventually they got conquered by the Orthodox. But they're still around somehow, so that could be quite interesting as well. There's also around here, and this is probably one of the more interesting countries as well. There's this kingdom right here, the county of Balachev, ruled by the Chuvash, which is a huge culture, but I'm pretty sure this is the last remainder of the Tengri faith, which is the Mongolian faith pretty much, because, oh no, there's a couple more Tengris here and there, but Tengri has pretty much been bred out, or converted out, so this could be quite interesting if you want to revive the Tengri faith in EU4. Otherwise, yeah, the Caucasus is also quite religiously divided. You have the Yapania here, which maybe you think, oh, okay, that's maybe like from Japan. No, that's a Jain faith. I actually don't know what exactly Jain means, but I know they're in India. They're very prominent here, and they somehow made their way over to the Caucasus. They're also, oh yeah, here, this is what I was thinking of. They're also over here in like northern Russia, which is ruled by the Finnic people. So lots of potential there as well. What else? Then you have again this Caucasian Christian sect. You have the Maturidis here, which is what pretty much most of Central Asia is. It's a sect of Muslims. You have the Apostolic Armenian Christians, which are, I mean, I guess this would be Armenia here, Vrastan, and yeah. And then there's this big kingdom, and you might think, okay, this is like the successor to the Arabian Empire, like the Seljuks or something, or not Seljuks, Abbasids. But no, this is a Mashriki Kurdish Haranian Empire. I don't even really know what Haranism is, if I'm being honest. It just is listed as a Semitic faith, so it's somehow, like, it's a local faith, but I don't know how they got in power or, like, what it exactly even is. But they are in power, and they're quite powerful. They haven't quite been able to convert many of the Muslims in the area here, but a good amount of them are converted, so this could be an interesting region to play as well. Either, like, you know, remove them from the region, or maybe play as them and try to convert the region. What else? You also have Byzantium, as you can see. I kind of didn't really talk about it, but Byzantium fell apart like at least 10 times, completely. I don't know how. Technically, Byzantium still exists in Constantinople, technically. And one thing that was also very, very funny, for whatever reason, the first time Byzantium fell apart, the Byzantine dynasty got ousted from power, and the guy who came in was a Chinese dude. Like, so the Eastern Roman Empire, at some point in history, in this timeline, was the Western Chinese Empire at the same time as being the Eastern Roman Empire. And that's just honestly hilarious. So I kind of want to reference that in EU4 somehow as well. But Byzantine technically still exists, but they're not all that powerful. The Italians, the Greeks have kind of just forged out their own destiny here. As you can see, there's Hellas here, lots of little Greek cultures, but this one is probably the biggest kingdom. And again, they're ruled by the Sorbians and they're Catholic. I don't know how they got here either, but they're converting all the Greeks to Catholicism. Then you also have the Thracians here, or Thrakicians, and they're again Khazars. They're Jewish Khazars here, and they used to be apostolic like Armenian Christians for the longest time, but they recently converted to this faith. So most of Anatolia is technically ruled by a Jewish faith, so that's very interesting. But again, none of their counties are. Like, none of their actual people that they rule over are Jewish, so they're gonna have to deal with lots of revolts. I expect this is probably gonna be one of those states that collapses by the time, or in EU4, most likely, because they're just not stable enough. They're also in a war already here, yeah. But they're actually conquering stuff, so I don't know. You have the Ephesians here, a couple of other things here. One thing I found interesting is Cyprus is still Greek, they're Cypriots, but they converted to Sunni Islam, so they conquered the Aegean Islands here. They conquered, I think, is this Gallipoli? I think this is Gallipoli, or is this Gallipoli? No, I think this is Gallipoli, but very close to Gallipoli. There's also another Muslim Cypriot country here, and yeah. And this is, I think, another shoot-off state of the Irbilids. There was never really a crusade for Jerusalem. Or, I think there might have been, but they got defeated. In any case, most of the crusades have been focused on other states in Europe, so these people have kind of just been able to do their own thing for the most part. Which is why this is like the... you could say the core Muslim territory, just like it is in our timeline, but still. Another... I didn't really play in this region, so I can't really say all that much about it. But there's a really big kingdom here, and if we look at the cultures as well, I didn't even talk about the cultures here. So as you can see, there's lots of different Greek cultures. I may need to like consolidate them a little bit when I transform it. But... yeah, the Armenians are pretty big here. The Georgians are relatively big, and there's lots of Caucasian cultures here as well, like the Alanis, the Abkhaz, the Svans, the Dagestanis, which have emerged here. The Assyrians also technically still exist, but they're very, very divided. I don't think they really have any rulers anymore either. The Kurds also still exist as their own people, but the Mashriki Kurds, which is kind of like a mixture of the Arabs and the Kurds, have kind of become the main culture around this area. The Mashriki, which used to be Bedouins, so they're Arabs pretty much, have also had lots of offshoot cultures like this Safatan culture. You have the Wasitian culture. You have the Al-Furat culture, you have the... actually, these are Arameans. But lots of cultures. And this Dimask al-Sam. Syria is also quite interesting because you have the Syrian culture, which comes from the Arabs. You have the Assyrian culture, which is a totally different thing, based off of the Assyrians. And then you have the Syriac culture, which is like Aramean. So Syria is also quite divided here, despite sounding very, very similar. Otherwise, oh, there's Persians in the core Arabia. I didn't even notice that. That's funny. And yeah, I mean, I guess this is pretty normal. Like, oh, the Persians own this piece of Arabia as well. That's interesting. North Africa is also relatively normal, I think. Like, the cultures, there's lots of cultures here normally, but they never really took hold. Like, you have the Baranis here, the Maghrebis, the Afrikaan culture was also here, and I think you even had Tunisian here and, like, Algerian, but they just never took hold, and this Boutr, which is the Berber I think is how you pronounce it. They kind of just stayed around here and moved here as well. The Moroccans technically exist, but only like around here. And then there's also the Bahranis, which is, I guess you would just call these people the Moroccans at this point because they own most of Morocco. And I think they're same language, same heritage. They're very similar, I think. Um, Anyways, so Northern Africa was relatively normal, apart from the fact that they're actually Ibadi Muslim and not Ash'ari Sunni Islam Muslims. So, yeah. Then I did not really take a look at Africa, but Eastern Africa, I always found a little bit interesting here. You have this kingdom right here, which is the Nubians. Most of Eastern Africa has converted to Islam, as is historical, but you have a couple of kingdoms who have held on to Christianity, like the Ethiopian kingdom of Aksum here. There's a couple of Orthodox kingdoms, and there's also a couple of Coptic kingdoms. And I think this is, yeah, these kingdoms right here and these little kingdoms right here are the only Coptic places really left. Or majority Coptic, I should say. What I did find very interesting is the Somalis actually, they used to be Armenian Christians for the longest time and then converted to Nestorian Christianity, which is another sect of Christianity that was like popular in Mongolia and then like the East. Again, I don't know how, but they've somehow managed to hold on to at least some of their territory. And yeah, oh, the Oromos actually expanded here. This used to be Somali just recently. Interesting. But yeah, Somali Christians as the protectors of Christianity in the Horn of Africa. Very interesting. Darfur over here again, last Copts. And culturally... Oh yeah, one thing I also found interesting, and I think this is just like a mod issue thing, like I had two mods that did the same thing essentially. You have the Coptic people, which are essentially Greek, or they descend from the Greeks, and then you have the Copts. Oh, I guess they are different. Yeah, the Copts are like native Egyptians, and the Coptics are Greek descendant Egyptians. Interesting. You also have this little piece of Radhanite culture here, which is, it seems a Turkic Jewish culture? Huh, interesting. I didn't even notice that. They're also over here around Venice, I saw earlier. I don't know how they got there, but it's interesting that they're the majority there. Otherwise, like mainland or core Africa, you could say, over here, they reformed some of their faiths, like the Bidaic faith right here, the Orison faith, but a lot of it also got converted by the Ibadis, by the Sufri Islam there, mostly by the Ibadis actually, a little bit of Sunni Islam. Quite interesting. Next up, let's talk more about like Eastern Europe. Because one thing I found quite interesting here is this little state right here, Agilinks, or the Duchy of Agilinks. These are East Germanic Goths, or I think in English you would call them the Ostrogoths, but I'm not entirely sure. This is quite interesting. They start out only on here, and I think in EU4 you still even actually have them in Theodoro, but they remained Gothic here. They did stay Orthodox as well, but they managed to conquer all of Crimea for them, and they even have a little bit of a trade empire, you could maybe say, like Genoa had, where they control Montenegro, and they used to control this little piece here as well. You can see this is Laveria, which is actually also Gothic, and also from the same dynasty. They just kind of split in a succession. So the Goths own half of Ukraine, which is, and they're technically German, although this land is not German. They're mostly Khazars, you could see. What else? The Chuvashians are actually quite big. I don't know how they culturally converted so much territory here, but they did. So they're gonna be like the, if they unite, that is, they could be like the successor to the Golden Horde. And let's see. What else? What else? This land right here, I didn't really pay much attention to, I'm gonna be honest. I know there's a bunch of different faiths here, like the Maturidi, which is also a piece or a part of Islam. You have the Japanese here that I mentioned earlier that somehow got here, which actually own a good amount of Siberia. You have the Manicheans, which is, again, it's a dualist faith. I don't know what the fuck that means, but they exist right here. You have the Mahayana Buddhists here. You have a couple of Tengris. You even have fucking Slavs. Wait, what? Is it just like... Okay, this county, for whatever reason, is just Slavic. They believe in the Slavic gods. What else? And I think culturally they're also relatively normal. I mean, the Kazakhs here are a little bit out of place. The Mongols are pretty normal here, I guess, but they haven't really expanded much either. Then... Persia. I have not really looked much at Persia either. I mainly played in Europe, as you can tell. But there's a couple of big kingdoms here. Oh wow, the Kingdom of Sin. The Sin Kingdom, that sounds fun. Or funny, rather. Yeah, they kind of just exist. I can't really say all that much about them. Nothing that really piques my interest there. India is relatively united, actually. Bengal is quite big. They're also Mahayana Buddhist. You have the Empire of Sin, which is Vaishnavism. Oh, this is actually quite interesting. So, for a long time as well, in Serbia, the only Serbian province somewhere around this place was ruled by a Vaishnavite Indian woman in her 60s. And she actually managed to make the Serbians believe in Vaishna or Vishnu Hinduism. Which, I mean, they got reconverted after a while, but still, that's funny. Maybe I should make a reference to that as well. This is, I mean, kind of an after-action report to show you guys what happened in my run. But this is also kind of like a audio way of or like a visual and audio way of taking notes. I did take a lot of notes. I wrote down stuff for most of the characters I played and to kind of like help build the lore for the conversion. But still, it's nice to have it in video form as well. So yeah, quite big. There's also a couple of other kingdoms here that I don't know what that is either. Yeah. Anyways. I don't even want to start to look at this this screen right here. This is very, very divided. Very, very culturally divided as well. Let's just not look there, because I have no idea about this region. And I think that's pretty much it. Did I miss anything? I don't think so. Maybe like the fact that the Ruthenians and the Lithuanians are quite big here, and the Sudovians still exist. Poland does not really exist, because remember, Polavia is a different thing, and they're also Silesian. I guess these two states right here would be the closest thing you have to a Poland. So maybe you could try to play as them and reform Poland or something. Yeah, but I think that would be it. That would be it. I'm gonna do the conversion. It's probably gonna take a while because I need to do some fine-tuning as well with like the cultures and make sure everything works and maybe add a couple decisions or a little bit of flavor to make this a proper playable mod. And once I finish that, I'll make another video about it. Anyways, that's pretty much it. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions... Oh, actually, one more thing. I need a name for this. Which will be essentially an EU4 mod. I'm not quite sure what I want to go with. I was originally, or one name that stuck in my mind was Crippled Cross, because, I mean, it rolls off the tongue first, and there's been a lot of, like, faiths, like, normally lots of these territories would be Christianized, so, but they just aren't. The Christians have had a relatively bad game in most areas, you could say. I guess they kind of expanded here, but other than that. So that was one of the names I had in my mind. Let me skip that music, or let me turn off that music. There we go. That was one of the names I had in mind. I was thinking maybe Slovakian century, since I started off as Slovakia. Oh yeah, I should maybe mention. So I played as Slovakia, I played as the Welsh, I played as the Cumbrians, and I played as the Baltics. I think that's it. I don't think I played as anyone else. I just switched it up whenever I felt a bit bored. So I need good names for this timeline, for this mod. I don't know. Maybe also something related to Wales, because the mod will essentially start off with the crusade for England proper, or what's left of England. So maybe something related to the Welsh. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Cambrian century or something? I don't know. If you guys have any suggestions, please tell me. If you guys have any questions and would like to know about some things, do tell me as well. And if you like stuff like this, also let me know. Because I doubt this will get many views, but I don't really care. So, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!